This video will cover creating and modifying time zones with datetime values in Lubridate. By the end of this video, you should understand how to specify the time zone information with a Lubridate datetime, and what methods are available to change the time zone information in an existing Lubridate datetime. The R code that I show in this video is available on Elms, and you may want to take a minute to download it and open it if you'd like to follow along on your own. Remember that datetimes in Lubridate include time zone information. You can set the time zone when you create a datetime. You can also modify the time zone later. So how exactly do we do this in Lubridate? Remember, by default, datetimes in Lubridate are going to use UTC as the time zone unless you specify something else. All of the datetime commands in Lubridate accept a time zone using the TZ argument with a time zone name in quotation marks. This is going to be an Olson name. There are also functions for changing time zones. The function with TZ will take a datetime and change the time zone on it, but keep the moments the same. That means the clock might change, but it will still represent the same moment. Alternatively, the force TZ function keeps the exact same day, hours, minutes, and seconds that you read on the clock, but changes the time zone. This will change the moment that that time zone represents, but keep all of the clock information the same. Let's add some time zone to some datetime data in Lubridate. Remember, you need to load the Lubridate library separately from the tidyverse. We'll do that. I'm just going to define a datetime, dt.1, as October 8th, 2018 at 10:43 and 15 seconds. I've done that, and you see when I print it out, it gives me that datetime with the UTC time zone. If you're ever curious about the time zone, the TZ function will tell you what the time zone for a particular datetime is. Here you can see the time zone for DT1 is UTC. You can set the time zone using the TZ equals parameter in any Lubridate datetime function. Here in this example, I took a datetime May 18th, 2001 at 12:15 p.m. I set the time zone equal to the Olson name America/Chicago. I print that out. You see I have May 18th, 2001 at 12:15 Central Daylight Time. That was the time zone that Chicago was using at that point in time. You'll notice when I inspect the time zone using the TZ function, it tells me the Olson name, which is America/Chicago. You can change the time zone of an observation with the with TZ function. Remember what this does is it takes a datetime, it keeps the moment exactly the same, it just changes the time zone that's associated with it. I've taken that previous datetime, I use the with TZ function to change the time zone to America, New York. As you can see, the result that I get has the same date, but now it says 13:15, it's 1 hour later in Eastern Daylight Time. The nice thing about Lubridate is that it handles proper conversions of time zones in the background. I'm going to remind us of that previous value. dt.ny, remember, is 13:15 Eastern Daylight Time. dt.chi is 12:15 Central Daylight Time. These represent the same moment in time, and if I test if they're equal, R tells me true, because remember, even though they show different times on clocks, they represent the exact same moment in time. The other function for converting time zones was force TZ. Force TZ preserves the exact same reading on a clock, but changes the time zone, so it will change the moment. What I've done here is, again, I take that dt.chi. In the first case, I use with TZ to change the time zone. I store that in dt.ny. And in the second case, I use force TZ to change the time zone, again to America, New York. I store that in dt.ny.2. Printing those out, you can see in the first example, the reading on the clock changed from the original value to 13:15 Eastern Daylight Time. In the second example, the reading on the clock is preserved. It's 12:15 p.m., just as it was in the Chicago example, but now the time zone has changed to Eastern Daylight Time. These represent two different moments in time. Remember, force TZ will change the moment, with TZ won't. You might like to print out or change time zone information when you print out datetimes. You can do that using the format function. In this example here, I define a datetime, dt, using the ymdh function. Since I don't specify a time zone, Lubridate is going to default to storing that information in UTC. Perhaps I'd like to print it out in a different time zone. With the format function, I can provide the TZ argument, and specify the Olson name America/Chicago. R will display that date time using the America/Chicago time zone. Also note that I included the %Z formatting code, which prints out the local time zone. Here in this case, it is Central Standard Time.